So welcome to Bunny's Designs. This is a live show recorded for Ustream.tv and also for YouTube for people to watch at their leisure. I've been playing about with my Pilot Parallel pen. Now I did refill the cartridges with an ink that said it was water resistant, and it clearly isn't water resistant. So I'm going back to my rotoring ink because that is definitely water resistant, and so hopefully when I iron out these problems in this little sketchbook, I'm going to do a series of color pages, 9.5 by 9, and I've got this sketchbook from Paper Chase, and it's got cream paper in it, then it's got a middle of brown paper, and then it has cream paper at the end, and I think that's going to look quite interesting to have a different variation. So I've not only got the parallel pen is like an italic pen, so it has a flat edge and you can draw on it side by side, or so you can have thick and thin lines with one sweeping motion, and I quite like that. So I've had a bit of a play, and I'm just colouring in with my Neos just to give a bit of colour, and see what the actual page finish looks like. Quite like my little mushrooms. I've changed them, I've altered them, I've added a few other different designs. I've put little windows, then I've put fairies in there. So I've been playing with the pen and made just a few simple little sketches that I thought I'd try and colour in. I used to do this a long time ago, but I thought I'd like to do it on this gorgeous cream paper. And I like the size, I like the shape, it's almost square, so I really like that. It's one of my favourite shapes of colour sketchbook, and also inside's got the brown paper. So once I get the ink to be permanent, I think that's going to really make a difference. So I think this is the purple that I used for the little tiny flowers. Again, the minute I touch this Indian ink, it's smudging, which I'm very cross about, really. So I need to put, I just thought I'd have a bit of a play. Thank you, Kingo, thank you. So I'm going to fill this book with doodles, and then when I've sorted out the butterfly shapes I like, the butterfly shapes I don't like, sorted out the toadstools, I like them when they're tilted, I don't like them when they're straight. I like them in groups of 3. Some butterflies I don't like, and some butterflies I quite like. So some backgrounds I like and some backgrounds I don't like. So I think by the time I've finished scribbling in this little cheap sketchbook, I will have sorted out some nice pages for me to colour in. And if anybody's interested, what I might do is put them on my website, if I can get it going properly, on my Facebook group, and if anybody wants to download the images, they can do and colour them in. And again, I'm not very good at backgrounds, so don't expect anything wonderful. But I just thought they'd be a bit different, and I haven't done any illustrations for a long time, so I'm quite pleased I'm back in the swing, shall we say. And these designs I did when in 1978. So they waited a long time to be aired, publicly, shall we say. This is a design that I made up when I was in my first year at college. Quite a few years ago now. So I think it's time they were aired a bit, literally. Not quite sure if they all go together, but I just thought I'd have a bit of a play. And this is very loose for me. I'm not normally this loose, so I normally have to draw things exact. So I quite like the fact that this is a bit freeing. So if you have any comments, if you've got any suggestions, pop them in the comments box below. And if you like my videos, please like and subscribe. It makes me feel wanted. So just put a little bit of purple. It might be a bit dark, but I'm just playing with a bit of a shape and a bit of colour. So I must have got my sleeve on that. So I did like the what colour did I do that? I think it was the mushrooms are scarlet, the little flowers are violet, which is number 120, and this one is number 36, raw sienna. So I think what I'm going to do is, because I've actually made a mistake, and the ink I've used to refill my parallel pen cartridges, I've refilled them, and it's not permanent ink, which is a bit of a shame. So I've had a bit of a smudgy thing going on. But that's better to find out at this stage than in the next. And it doesn't matter if you scribble with the Neos, they are so soft, they disintegrate. So you don't have to panic about having lines, scribbly lines, because you won't have scribbly lines. And you can, oopsie, I made a mistake. No, I didn't. I quite like these larger mushrooms that kind of go into a hillside. So again, that might be something that I do. But this is a very early stage of playing with a few of my designs. And it's been quite pleasant. Some of the things I really don't like, some of the things I think are okay. I kind of like the shapes of the mushrooms, but I've actually on another page made the mushrooms into little houses. So then that has to introduce some fairies into it and some kind of backgrounds. So let me have a look at my butterflies. Could have kind of a bit of a yellow butterfly going on, I think. I've got to be a little bit careful because, as I say, I've made a boo-boo with the ink. Totally my fault. But the Caran d'Achenear Colour 2s are wonderful for just dotting in a bit of colour. And the Derwent watercolour brush number 1 is, oops, it's forgiving, except for the ink runs. As soon as I'm touching this ink, it's running. So I'm going to get a green butterfly, not a yellow one. So it's not going to be good colours. Probably better actually leaving them. Even the red will dull. So that was my mistake, to refill the parallel pens. The cartridges I refilled with a non-permanent ink, which was a silly thing to do, really. And I think we're going to end up with a kind of a green. I don't think it's going to be very yellow, that, but there's a bit of colour in there. Oh, hi Connie, welcome to Bunny's Designs. Yes, I was having a bit of a play. I was having a play and I think I drew this one. But I've made the mistake, and I drew this one, I think. I made a mistake of putting this Daler Rowney drawing ink with a syringe, not a very sharp syringe, I hasten to add, but just an ordinary syringe, into the cartridges of the parallel pens. And I filled all three up. And they are not waterproof. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this book with more ideas, and then I'm going to photocopy them, and then I'm going to colour them in. So my little houses, my little mushrooms have turned into houses. So then we had to have a fairy. This was practicing with getting the pens full of ink. Putting rope ladders to the houses. Some butterflies I like, some I don't like. There's a dragonfly, playing with the buddleia shapes to stylize them into this stylized way. And then this is my design, another one that I did 30 odd years ago, nearly 40 years ago. So I'm not halfway through the book, so I'll continue with this kind of mushroom and fairies and little houses and backgrounds and flowers and things to make it a little bit more interesting. I do like the three mushrooms, and I do like them kind of skew width rather than straight up. But I don't like that top. But I do like this bit here, and I like the fact you can see through, so you can make your own background. So this one I've just had a bit of a practice to colour with my Neos that I have in my Derwent art bag, because they're so easy to just pop in and out. My orange one will go down there. Oops. I do have two scarlets. I don't know why I have two scarlets, but I have two scarlets. I think that pink one. That one goes up there. That's the pink one that goes up there. Because then that goes to pale pinks. I like the fact I can flip. Again, the brown one goes in there. I have my purples. And I have my greens. So once I've ironed out, I probably will go back to my my Rotring Isograph proper Indian ink, permanent ink. But seeing as I've just filled up 3 pens, I'm going to have to play in here and get the designs, and then I shall photocopy them, and then I'm going to try and put them on my website. My website at the moment is not being looked after. With short-term memory loss, I forget what I'm doing half the time, so that's got to be looked at a bit better. I do have a Facebook group though. I think I have a Facebook group. So I'm going to redesign these particular images onto a 9.5 by 9 3/4, and this is a gorgeous sketchbook, Squarecraft Cream Notebook by Paper Chase, and they're £4.50, so they're a good price, and the middle has got craft paper in them. Of course, I love doing line drawings on craft paper, so I intend to fill this entire book with this kind of design of butterflies, dragonflies, mushrooms, toadstools, fairies, little houses, little worlds, and my other design as well. So it's not a total disaster, even though the ink did run. Teach me a lesson not to be such a tight Yorkshire lass. But it's still good fun. It means I can fill this little book, which is quite a nice, it's an acid-free 140 extra wet strength. And this is why I like this one. This is the Sea White of Brighton. But I like this extra wet strength. Means this is the paper that I make my little book of colours from. And it means you can wet them time after time after time, and they are not going to disintegrate. Now I've just revamped the Derwent watercolours, and the Derwent ink tents, but my original Graffy tint looked perfectly okay, even though I've used them several times and I've revamped them. The Neocolor 2s, I've got about 102, I think 112 in here. Again, where they're wet, it's not going to disintegrate. If this was watercolour paper and you made these squares, when you wet them, sorry about that, when you wet them, the colour would soak into the watercolour paper, because that's what it's designed to do. Sorry, Alfie's just having his moment. Apologies. So never use watercolour paper. Use good quality sketchbook paper, and if you can get the extra wet strength, that's perfect. I've made this 4 or 5 years ago, and it's still doing perfectly okay. And I'm actually going to pass it on to my daughter, the squares that I'm replacing. So she's got one. But the Caran d'Ache, the Ganzai Tambi watercolours are on sketchbook paper. If they were on watercolour paper, all that colour would just soak through, instead of sitting on top waiting for me to take it off. So these little fat puddles of colour. Apologise about the lighting, but working on a white page, it disintegrates sometimes. So that's cracked a little bit. You can see there's a little bit of cracking on that, because it's a big fat puddle of colour. But there's a lot of colour on there, and the Ganzai Tambi watercolours are professional, so there's a lot of pigment. The same with the Hydrus. You know, they look kind of bitty and there doesn't look to be much, but there's quite a lot of colour on there. So I'm going to be using all those different mediums in my little book. I'll be using in my sketchbook to colour in. So thank you for watching.